Hi, everyone. Welcome to this edition of the AI Monetization Podcast. I'm Binny, the co-founder of Project Pro. As you know, on this podcast, we speak with industry leaders on what kind of business outcome and career impacts they are seeing with AI. Today, we have with us Calista Cooper. Calista is the Director of Learning and Development at Vendasta, where she leads learning experiences for both internal and external stakeholders. Calista has had a very interesting career as a teacher, as a graphics designer, a social media director, and more recently focused on instruction design before leading L&D at Vendasta. Calista is also passionate about lifelong learning and generating student or learner-centric content. Calista, welcome to this show. Thank you for taking time to do this.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. That pretty much sums me up. Yeah.
Awesome. Uh, Calista, uh, in this
Mhm.
age of all of us and our workflows being supercharged with AI, as an L&D leader, what are your top kind of priorities that you wake up and run towards every day?
Oh man, isn't that the key question?
Uh-huh.
Um, Everything being AI powered, it's funny when you're thinking about your direct team because that's always
Hmm.
my priority. But when you're in L&D, you're cross-functional and you're working with every team. And
Yeah.
I think so often when you're thinking about making business decisions at an enterprise level, you think about quantitative data and how that guides your decision making. And in L&D, we've always been focused on qualitative, and now more than ever, like everyone's leaning into that. And so when I wake up every morning, I think, okay, how can I make sure that our 650 people across Vendasta are taking record of their current workflows, are recording what they can and analyzing it with AI, keeping track of what they're doing now so that we can look at it as AI and capabilities of AI and automation grows, and we can help expedite those existing processes. Because
Hmm.
everything that when it comes to AI, what we're putting in is greatly impacting what we're putting out. And so we're not thinking about outputs anymore. I'm trying to shift the focus. We're thinking about outcomes, the business use case, and we're thinking about inputs. And we're spending more time now that AI can kind of help us with our outputs. We're not thinking in those anymore. So if I'm thinking instructional design, I'm not thinking about a course. What is the business outcome? I need X audience to understand Y so they can do Z,
Hmm. Hmm.
and then thinking about all the inputs and the different inputs we have, video recordings, different sessions, courses, online YouTube videos, all of those inputs, making sure we're solving the right problem. AI can help us with the outputs and just making sure that we're solving the problem in the beginning and the end, having a human in the loop, but AI can work to help us with the rest of it and just broadening our minds about how that can work. Shifting away from outputs, I think, is my biggest thing when it comes to changing mindsets at the company every morning. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. It's very interesting. It's kind of very very forward thinking kind of a L&D leadership right there. And just to make sure I understood this right, Calista, which is you're kind of trying to catalog all kinds of workflows that are happening across the company, across various teams, and trying to map that to what AI workflows and how you can empower them to do that better with AI.
Absolutely. So
Yeah,
we're doing kind of AI full task analysis, and we're
yeah,
really encouraging leaders. That's individual contributors and managers. Everyone's a leader at Vendasta, especially as we partner with AI.
yeah.
But what does that mean when we look at a full workflow? Because we're solving for a whole workflow, right?
Mm,
And that's what's going to get us past the gap of you just a 2x win of automating a little piece of our process. That's a task. There are
mhm,
like 8 tasks, say, involved in a full workflow. What
mhm,
if we think about that whole workflow, where we
mhm,
need to get from that business outcome, and
mhm,
see first what we can use when we, manage an agent doing that whole workflow
mhm.
instead of just, say, using generative AI to help us write a script or a
Yeah,
small task
yeah.
involved in that work. So
Hmm.
really broadening our capacity, even if the technology isn't there quite yet,
Hmm.
it might be soon. So thinking
Yeah.
about, where are we at now? Okay, we're
Hmm.
automating 30% of this whole workflow. That's great.
Yeah.
Let's
Hmm.
keep track of how it exists and where we eventually need to get to, if
Hmm.
it should exist at all, and then work our way backwards.
That's very interesting. And just to understand this better, which is, once you, let's say for a certain workflow, there are 8 steps to that process, you catalog that. Is step one to say, hey, just use ChatGPT with better prompting to automate it? Then step two, we'll build an agent. Step three, maybe a full scale system. Is that how you look at it? Is ChatGPT and Copilot the first step towards automating, or not really always? Or are there SaaS tools that you
Um,
look at? Mhm.
Yeah, great question. There are function-specific tools, of
Yeah.
course.
Hmm.
If you're in UX design or instructional design, or you're a developer, maybe you're using Cursor. Um, so we're very open to, as long as we're keeping all of our proprietary data,
Hmm.
safe,
Hmm.
experimenting with enterprise level tools outside of Gemini and ChatGPT. We do utilize Gemini internally. That's our kind of uh, conversational and generative AI tool of choice. But
I
we
see.
also are developing a lot of things inside the Vendasta platform.
Hmm.
And we're model agnostic because we want in our platform, because we want to make sure that we're getting the best outcome for everyone who's using it. And we adopt kind of like we say eating our own dog food
Hmm.
internally, because we're using and always experimenting with our own product in
Hmm.
addition to those enterprise level AI tools like ChatGPT. And so, yes, maybe we are looking initially at, if I'm thinking of an instructional design process where I want to design a course on, workplace safety and compliance.
Yeah.
I have, 8 steps. I'm brainstorming best practices. I'm using Gemini to look up the requirements on a state basis, or, we're a global workforce. So it really helps us understand what each region requires and those kind of things. So it's a research assistant, and
Hmm.
then it's a full presentation developer, but maybe we use Cursor
Hmm.
to actually develop that presentation in a branded way and
Hmm.
export something that we can
Hmm.
then use Google Slides to
Hmm.
add images to. And so that's breaking apart and looking at those different tasks. But what if we
Hmm.
get to the point
Hmm.
where, if we're thinking about compliance, we need our 650 people internally at Vendasta to um, understand what it means to operate in a safe workplace. And we need
Hmm.
everybody to sign off on policy X, Y, and Z.
Hmm.
We might be looking at a completely different way people are learning. Maybe
Hmm.
it is a bot either developed using a custom GPT, a Gemini
Hmm.
Gem, or something inside the Vendasta platform
Hmm.
that you can work with in a customized way. And based on your knowledge, they can assess basic knowledge right at the beginning. Where are you at? Do you understand this kind of basic information? Are you at intermediate, advanced? And then get through assessment working together. We've developed a few of those, and they're working really well. So maybe it's not a course anymore. And so we
Hmm.
don't want people in their role just thinking about automating these 7 steps that it takes to make a course.
Hmm.
Well, we can do that, and that's helping us think big and get a chance to experiment with AI and build that into team workflows. But it's not the whole answer. Eventually we're going to get to agentic AI to help solve all of these problems, and that is going to be the whole workflow.
There's some very, very interesting things you just said there right now, Calista. So you're basically saying that learning is probably going to move away from a course kind of structure to more like an interactive kind of engaging mode, right? And you're already
Yeah,
seeing early signs of that happening.
absolutely. Would you agree?
I totally agree. I mean, today, anything I want to learn, I go to ChatGPT and then I just let my curiosity guide me. And it's amazing to learn that way. You just retain a lot
Absolutely.
more, right? So, in that scenario, does that mean that in instruction design team, the traditional tools that they use, like Articulate and Captivate, and you've done that yourself, we will see a shift from that towards AI creating a lot of this content? Do you think that could happen?
I think so, and I think it already is. It's just the attention span of people, the immediacy and the expectation to guide your own experience in every facet of life and consumer behavior. It's being mirrored in learning and development. And I think we've always adopted at Vendasta the 70-20-10 model. Formal learning is only really 10% of it. And so we can get that experiential learning component, that 70% deeper involved in the actual flow of work, that's the ultimate goal across the board. So if we think about someone, maybe a salesperson who's in our platform, they get a question about custom APIs. In the moment, they can look up the API connection in question in the platform and have a sales coach right along there with them, helping them learn in the moment so they can speak to that platform component or feature, right? And there are some capabilities of traditional learning experience platforms or LMSs that do integrate, of course. And we are always going to be, we're always going to need a source of information and a source of truth, but that can be a back end somewhere. People aren't engaging necessarily in this big catalog. I think you used that word earlier, of information, whether that's a help center and it's technical documentation or it's a full platform with courses. We are looking to engage with something that aggregates all this qualitative data and information for us and helps us solve a problem, no matter how big or small, learning or otherwise, and help us transform either the way we're thinking, the way we're acting, or the way we're solving the problem to get to that end result. We're not going to need necessarily, I don't think, a home base where I'm browsing a catalog of 85 courses that might fit me. This is my role. I'm a new manager. Where do I start? It's a conversation you have before with a manager. Now maybe it's with an AI who's your custom manager onboarder, things like that.
Very, very interesting. So you're essentially saying we are getting to a future where content generation, I mean, learning content generation is going to move away from this single source of truth, disseminating stuff, to content being really created at the point of need, next to every user, learner. That's where it's going to dynamically get generated. Yeah, you think so? Okay.
I just want to, I think, be very clear about this. People don't know what they don't know. And so there still needs to be an orchestrator and somebody who's scaffolding this information in a meaningful way.
Of
And
course,
so
yeah.
I think that, we'll be uh, developing system prompts or custom instructions, whatever you want to call the back end. I don't know if the industry's figured it out yet, but the
Yeah.
way that we make these experiences behave is
Yeah.
going to have to be very specially programmed to get those tailored results per user. And that's what
Mhm.
we're working on right now inside of the Vendasta platform. And we can kind of mirror that for internal learning experiences as well. There is always going to be someone orchestrating behind the scenes that now you're not managing a catalog of, like I said, 100 courses. You're managing an AI to make sure that it is retrieving the information, whether it's through, like a vector search or however RAG really works in the back end, right? Like you need to know a little bit, but you don't need to know it all. All of it is searching for the most appropriate information, but it's also going to be your guide. And I think that's important because if you're not just searching in the moment for, oh, I need the answer to this, you might be trying to understand something a little more in depth and you need that next level scaffolded help. That's where an instructional designer and, teachers and educators and an educational experience comes in general. It's
Yeah.
not just a point solution or a point in time answer all the time. You do need someone helping you along and being that kind of learning coach. That's something you can program an AI to do, but that's
Hmm.
not out of the box. That's something out of the box. It's a little bit more customized on, what you internally need, what your users and your learners need.
Makes a lot of sense. And just for those of the audience listening to the podcast who are not familiar with Vendasta, could you maybe just give us an overview of the business and the product and the audience that you serve?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So we are an AI-powered SaaS solution platform for small to medium businesses. And so we offer everything in our platform when it comes to, awareness of a small business, to actually capturing leads and potential customers on a website, nurturing them, engaging with them, And then, the last kind of step of that is helping them advocate. So we have everything when it comes to like a lead capture for our websites. We have SEO products in our platform. We have social media, reputation management, and you're thinking about like Google reviews, the whole customer journey for
Wow.
local businesses is something that we offer in our platform, and we sell through the channel, what we call channel partners. And so
Hmm.
they come in and they use our platform, and they can use it to brand as their own. And then we have something called the business app that they brand, and then they can share with local businesses who they serve. So we're empowering them and really helping them compete against, big enterprise level companies who have all this capacity to give these kind of full, robust experiences to small businesses, to the smaller scale agencies who need to be adopting AI across the board and really fueling all their solutions and helping small businesses win in that way as well.
Very nice. I mean, so almost you provide a business in a box for small businesses to go kind of arm themselves against the big guys. Yeah,
Exactly. You
very
nailed
nice.
it. Yeah.
Very nice. Um, um, so in this future you're envisioning about personalized at the endpoint kind of learning, what are challenges you see today? Are there technology challenges? For example, maybe videos are not AI can't generate good enough video. What kind of challenges do you see today in kind of realizing that future?
Absolutely. Branded content creation. I would say we're just still not there. Even if we're thinking about, you can develop a full research, say you're developing a course on systems thinking. Research assistant helps you gather all the information. Fantastic. Scripting for a slide presentation. Absolutely, step by step. Going through a full outline of the presentation. Yep, you bet, with learner outcomes. Who is this mapped for? The whole ecosystem gets you to about 60%.
Hmm.
And there is not a tool I have found yet that is able to fully create that customized either slide deck or presentation or learner experience. I think actually when it comes to creative tools, we have some things that are great out of the box. Like if we're looking at Google Slides, it can help you craft individual slides and get you
Yeah.
up to 50%.
Hmm.
But ideally, and something that we're building internally with our own functionality, is taking our branded set of assets. So
Hmm.
whether that is small videos, walkthroughs, logos, or hex colors, all of those design elements,
Yeah.
feeding into the AI, your audience, your learner outcomes,
Hmm.
um, the change in behavior you expect,
Hmm.
and a basic outline, right? And then it can
Hmm.
spit out the final product. We're
Hmm.
just not there yet. And that's a huge barrier when it comes to design. We have not found a tool that can do that for us yet. So we're just going to build it. And I'm sure it's going to get there soon.
Yeah.
Cursor does a decent job. ChatGPT can feed it into Canva. And we found a few kind of things that work decently well, but for a fully branded partner facing, sales deck, it's not where we need to be when it comes to sales enablement, and that kind of next level up.
I see. I see. Interesting.
Mhm.
So, and just to make sure I understood this right, you're saying that if you take the ADDIE model, the AI is good enough to help you with the analysis, the design, maybe even the evaluation, but not the second D, the development of the content. It's really not there. That's the part that we're struggling with right now. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I,
I'd say we still have a heavy, heavy hand in the actual creative content
uh,
component.
okay. And in the future you described earlier, which is the whole interactive, curiosity-led mode of learning, how important do you think video is as a learning element? Or do you think just text-based interaction is good enough to get us there? Or do you think video is critical?
It really depends on how people learn, their
Hmm.
level of curiosity. and initial understanding. It really depends. Like if you need to understand a full topic, strategy included, like you really need to understand design thinking,
Hmm.
you are going to need something a little more robust and engaging than just text. That's
Yeah.
appropriate for technical documentation, and AI really likes reading images. It's fantastic at it. So when
Hmm.
you're thinking about, like, for example, our product and platform, we do a lot of step-by-step screen grab walkthroughs. And
Mm.
so AI is exceptional when it comes to guiding users through that kind of experience, but there is a full value of the platform video experience that I don't think can be replaced by just text or response, conversation back and forth. So embedding videos in that process is going
Hmm.
to be instrumental to really, at least now or in the next, I'd say even 2 years, meeting
Hmm.
learners where they're at. We need to give them a little bit more than text. Would you agree that you're experiencing the same thing with your audience?
I agree. I agree. I mean, especially with our audience, right? Where many times what we do is we pull up the code and then somebody is like walking you through the code. So, there the kind of the headshot of the expert kind of superimposed on the code video itself is actually super super helpful. I don't see how
Mm-hmm.
a purely text thing could achieve that.
Yeah, I agree. I think for just-in-time learning, when you have a question that has a
Hmm.
relatively simple answer or a step-by-step workflow, that
Yeah.
can be text-based and should
Hmm.
be text-based because
Hmm.
you want to solve a problem like that. But if
Yeah.
you want to change your behavior or you want some sort of transformation,
Hmm.
that's where we need to understand the concept at a higher level. And you need a scaffold of experience. And
Hmm.
people still want that through something that feels interactive. Even if video isn't interactive, it's
Hmm.
almost there, right? You feel like you're
Yeah.
interacting with somebody. So I think we still are going to want to learn that way until, we get an AI on the other end who is there mirroring our body language and having
Hmm.
a conversation with us, which is also not far off. I don't know if you've experimented with tools like Synthesia, but it's really getting there. So
Yeah. Hmm.
one day
Yeah.
soon.
Monday. So yeah, hopefully very soon. I mean, the pace at which these things are going, you probably saw the Google's latest video generation
Mm,
models, right?
yes, I have. Yeah.
You have. It's super impressive what those
Mhm.
things can do.
Yeah, it's really blurring the lines. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh, the other thing I was curious about was uh, in this whole AI powered learning, what are some of the skills that you're actually uh, training the team on? Are there a few buckets of these skills that you're focused on?
Yeah, that's a great
Hmm.
question. And there's kind of two sets. There's the actual AI tools and partnering with AI in general.
Hmm.
And then there's future proofing yourself and
Hmm.
what that means interacting with AI. Think about AI, there's prompting, prompt engineering, whether that is front end, back end, whatever you call it.
Hmm.
Um, Thinking about that when it comes to mindset, structure, and skills. So do you have the mindset to partner with AI? Are you open to it? Do you understand what it can do, the value of it? Why might you be hesitant? Thinking about like privacy and controls and responsible use, all of that's involved there, right? And then we think about the structure. If we're thinking of teams, is your team set up for success? Do you see people modeling the behavior? That's kind of that last step. And then skills is, the prompt engineering. How can you map your workflows and tasks, to different tools? Have you explored with, 4 or 5 different tools, those kind of skill levels? But then do you have the kind of human higher order, higher thinking skills like systems thinking, critical thinking, design thinking that you need to really excel when
Hmm.
partnering with AI? So, are the
Hmm.
systems and the skills set up to actually use the tools and get the most out of the tools? Are you yourself ready to engage and making the most of them? Because if you're not thinking in a system, you're going to be experimenting with AI in a silo. And we don't want to
Hmm.
build deeper silos at the company. We want to
Hmm.
broaden our impact. So
Hmm.
if you are now spending 30% less time on the outputs, you're
Hmm.
spending all that 30% of time on the inputs. And that is thinking holistically about the impact that your output is going to make on the company. And that is all about systems thinking. So we've been doing a ton of upskilling in the company around systems thinking. What does
Hmm.
that mean in each role? What does that mean for a manager? How can you make sure that you're making a strategic, business outcome, and you're talking to other people in the company, you're using robust inputs to actually have AI create this output for you. Great, you know the skills, you know how to use Cursor, you know how to use Gemini or our internal AI. Are you sure it's doing the right thing? If you're solving this problem, is somebody else solving that problem too? And how
Hmm.
can we make sure we're looking left, looking right, getting to the root cause and solving the right problem in alignment, and those are absolutely key to succeeding in
Hmm.
this new kind of AI powered workforce.
Very interesting. One of the things I hear constantly when I speak with instructional designers, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, is that one of the top challenges they always tell me is getting the time and bandwidth of SMEs to give input on the content they develop. Is that still relevant in this new age and in all these skill topics that you're talking about, or is it really not relevant? You can really count on AI to be the SME for you.
Um, so it's not as bad.
Mm,
There's always, in my opinion, it's figuring out what works and meeting people where they're at.
mm,
Um, in addition to adding these aspects as their definition of done. So if we're thinking about a product manager, the end user's experience, which includes technical product or help documentation,
mm,
needs to be a part of the definition of done. But how can we as an instructional designer get the most use out of
mm,
30 minutes of their time? Maybe that's every 2 weeks.
mm,
And now because of AI, we're not having them go in, make edits on courses, do a script outline, help us understand the product. They do product releases every week. They have a sprint review every 2 weeks. We do interviews and office hours with them, every 2 or 3 weeks. How can we aggregate everything from that information, build Q&As from that, AI, exceptional at that, have
mm,
them walk through, in our case, the Vendasta platform while they're talking about this, so that we get the walkthrough video, we get their script notes, we get all of these potential outputs in one, or an aggregated bunch of information that they're already doing. And so
yeah,
we're having to use that group of people as a resource less, and it's more
yeah.
about verification and validation of existing information, making sure AI isn't hallucinating, and that we're all telling the same story. So I
Hmm.
think that unique barrier that we have faced forever is
Hmm.
is slowly getting smaller, and I am super excited about that.
Amazing. Very nice. And in the skill sets that you mentioned right now, which is like helping people work with AI and also kind of thinking about their future careers, um,
Mm.
how do you kind of measure um, um, outcomes in topics like this? How do you think of that?
So there are different ways, and one
Hmm.
thing that we're experimenting with right now when it comes to we're developing a sales coach, and an AI support bot that
Mm,
can help you learn in the moment, and it is about ticket resolution time, first
mm,
touch ticket,
mm.
those kind of things. So it's like, are they getting the information that they need in the moment?
Yeah.
Are they prompting 6 times to try to
Hmm.
get information? That's, that test is going to fail. But if
Yeah.
they're prompting twice, maybe they're
Yeah.
just reframing. And then that
Yeah.
allows us to build a better, like, custom instructions in the background, or lets us know that we need to validate a different piece of information that the AI is pulling in. So it really depends on the core function of the AI, um, and the learning experience or the transformation required, that change in behavior. And then the KPIs and everything around that and the metrics we look at are based on different things.
Got it. And if you had like a magic wand to build you a solution that would really make your life leading L&D really easier, what would that be? What is your most burning problem that you wish somebody would just build a solution for you?
You know, oh, there's two things, but I think one of them we're working on our platform, and that is personalized onboarding experiences. So
Okay.
that aside, and that I'm super excited about, I'd say just general accountability,
Hmm.
um, and measuring accountability. And you can, what do people always say? You can bring in a horse to water, but you can't help them drink. So, that
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
type
yeah, right.
statement,
Yeah, yeah.
that idiom. And it's always something we struggle with in learning and development and, empowering managers to hold everyone accountable or people being accountable for their own learning, a deeper understanding of, measuring mindset or measuring accountability when it comes to their own learning and development. And I think that's probably going to be one of the last things that AI can help with, when
Hmm.
it comes to performance management and all those things. And I think you want a human in the loop for some of those things longer term. But if I could make a wave of magic wand, we would take away the spreadsheets that measure accountability and assessments and all those kind of pieces.
Mm. And by accountability, do you also, I mean, you really mean motivation to kind of, is that roughly what you're referring to?
I think so. I think even
Yeah.
if you're thinking about, required training or you need all your sales folks to have, 90% proficiency on X part of the platform,
Yeah.
um, assessment and accountability that they're where they're at and they're going through and adopting their own kind of learning path. That's
Hmm.
something that needs to kind of bring accountability and assessment and I guess, yeah, motivation all together. If I could wave a
Hmm.
wand,
Yeah.
um, that's probably what I would do.
Very interesting. AI could potentially be pretty good at creating assessments, would you think, to solve this part of the problem?
I think parts of it,
Hmm.
and then the generalized reporting, it can do a decent job at, but it's
Hmm.
bringing all of those pieces together. I
Hmm.
guess when you think about project management and program management,
Hmm.
we still haven't found a way to aggregate all the tools and components of, we build assessments all the time with AI, but that
Yeah.
measures proficiency in one
Hmm.
thing.
Hmm.
It's not aggregating a deep understanding of the general adoption of X, Y, and Z of the 60 people in a certain function.
Hmm.
Um, and so I think measuring that would help with succession planning. It would help with managerial competencies, product and platform competencies, a more deeper understanding of strategy and where our people really need more from us
Hmm.
rather than, well, I don't have access to those kind of things, or
Hmm.
I need more information on X and Y,
Hmm.
giving us kind of deeper insights and holding themselves and their teams accountable, I think
Hmm.
would be helpful.
Makes sense. And
Hmm.
some of the points that you were mentioning, Calista, which is one is this whole sense of curiosity-based interactive learning. Second is we are also kind of hearing about AI helping with knowledge management, the idea of a personal coach. Do you think sometime in the future all of these things kind of come together in the solution you're envisioning? It kind of seems to bring together like a knowledge management, a coach. Do you think all these areas come together, or do they say separate?
That is the $1 million question.
Yeah.
So I think everyone is trying to decide right now, do
Mm,
you have a series of agents
mm,
who all specialize in different things,
yeah.
or do you have one agent who
Mm,
does everything and aggregates all that information and does all those different functions for you. So do
mm-hmm,
I want a workforce of AI employees like we have internally? We have Scout right now
mm,
who's being worked on, and he is someone who's going to run, first touch interviews. We have Pepper internally. She is our Q&A person for people operations. So she knows all about our policies. We're working on Wayfinder right now, who's our learning coach. And so you're asking the question, if I am an employee at Vendasta, do I want to be able to just engage in one system or with one person? That's,
mm,
a point of contention. um, and then be able to work in that way? Or do I like to compartmentalize and have different employees who are helping me with things? And I don't know the answer to that. I think in my mind, I just want to be able to learn and solve the problem myself.
Hmm.
But I'm more of a type B kind of person. Maybe a different kind of person wants to be able to put in buckets. I know this person is going to be my answer for everything compliance, legal, policy related, and I want somebody else to be my brainstorming partner
Hmm.
for X, Y, and Z, and I want someone else to be my research assistant. And then there might be times where I want to be able to ask a question to all of them in my ecosystem. I don't know what that's going to look like, um, but the future for that is very near.
Okay.
What is
Yeah.
your opinion? What's a better user experience?
s- At least the today's version of AI tends to do well, the more focused it is on one specific thing. So for example, if you want a personal coach AI to be really good at pedagogy and things like that, that's a slightly different kind of AI than the one that you would need to do deep search for not knowledge management. Now, technically, I don't know how, when you bring these things together into the same thing, I don't know if you dilute these capabilities a little bit, at least the way tech is today. Yeah, that's my current thought. AI seems to do well if it's specialized, but all of that is changing as we speak. So we don't know where we're, yeah. But I think today, having them separate makes a little more sense today. That's what I think. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think so too. I think we're thinking about that in the platform as well because we have
Mm,
AI employees, we have, social media uh, employee, we have reputation management employee, we have someone who's focused on all these different pieces, but does it make sense? And if the capabilities are there, to just have one central employee
mm,
uh, who just calls on, they're the orchestrator who
mhm,
calls using different prompts that the person puts in and
mhm,
knows which employee and their specialty area and brings back that information. That
mhm.
that is going to allow those capabilities, like you said, like deeply specialized in deep research or doing XYZ function to
Yeah.
maintain that expert capability in that function and not dilute it, and then allow the user to only engage with that aggregate information.
Right.
I don't know which is going to be a better experience, and we're going
Mhm.
to be able to experience soon in with both options. I think we already are.
Yeah. Yeah.
It'll be
No,
interesting.
that'd be interesting. Yeah. And the most telling thing about your response right now is how you are referring to the AI agents almost as peer and colleague, and you have a name and you're calling them he
Mm-hmm.
and a she, and so it's almost as if
Mm-hmm.
they're like somewhere in the next office there. So that's very telling.
And that is not everybody's take. And I
Mm,
think that's important too. And when you think about mind shift and change management in the company, I think
mm,
you have to be very careful with that. And we've gotten
mhm,
quite a bit of feedback. We've accidentally or, based on preference, called our internal people ops bot Pepper a her. And
mm,
not everybody loves that. They want
yeah.
to refer to it as an it, it's a machine. And it's important to think about what that means to different people and be
Mm,
sensitive to that,
mm-hmm,
especially when you think about there might be employees who um, are sensitive to the fact that their job or what they currently define as their job might be
yeah.
replaced.
Yeah.
Because we're not replacing jobs, we're amplifying and changing the scope of what people do.
Yeah.
Um, but I think being cautious and aware of that when we're talking about, AI employees, what does
Mhm.
that mean to everybody? And that's part of the change management story for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's very well said. I mean, many people have many considerations other than let's just adopt the latest tech and learn better. So yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And just coming to the topic of learning and development budgets, do you see that changing significantly in this new uh, era? Do you see that expanding significantly, or how what do you how do you think that'll play out?
Great question. I do because I think our function in general is going to
Hmm.
greatly expand,
Yeah.
just because of its generalized capacity. And in the face of AI, I say,
Hmm.
rise of the generalists, because we
Hmm.
have now a bunch of specialists.
Hmm.
So all these L&D function is exceptional in my mind of thinking of the full picture and being
Hmm.
understanding 35% of every part of the company and every role, and bringing together those different specialists or experts and,
Hmm.
you know, orchestrating the whole thing, putting it together. That in itself is going to be a huge part of what everybody does. And I think
Hmm.
learning and development and operations in general as well, are uniquely positioned to make sure that everything is kind of working in harmony. And when we think about qualitative ingredients,
Yeah.
um, that is something that I think right now, at least in our team, we are owning or helping orchestrate knowledge management. And that
Hmm.
is technical documentation, that's internal documentation, that's policies, that's walkthrough videos, that is anything you can think about from inputs. You're going to need numerous amounts of people doing verification, maintaining the AI, understanding and maintaining the quality of those inputs, because
Hmm.
that's what's feeding the quality of the outputs in, garbage in, garbage out. And so there's going to be um, maybe less people doing the front end touch for, um, say sales or support, and working with the partner directly. But
Hmm.
their job isn't going to go away, it's going to shift.
Hmm.
And they might have someone on their team responsible for maintaining educational materials or,
Yeah.
um, documentation or technical documentation, no matter the way things change, or understanding how the bot engages, understanding custom instructions and prompt engineering in their function, solving that
Hmm.
business unit problems.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I see L&D, whether it is centralized or decentralized, growing
Hmm.
exponentially. Long answer to your question.
Fantastic. No, terrific, terrific, terrific answer. And finally, see, one of the areas in skilling and education that I've been passionate about for a very long time is the whole concept that learning is best done in the flow of work at the point of
Mm.
need, ideally in the form of some kind of reusable template which you deploy in your work and then you learn in the process. Um, from your experience being a teacher, instruction designer, and leading L&D, which functional areas do you think this modality fits in the most? Learning in the flow of work using templates. Where do you think most of the value or the opportunity or the pull is?
Um, I think anyone who is partner facing
Mm.
or sol required to solve a solution or come up with a solution to a problem,
Mhm.
that's time boxed. And so
Mm.
that's pretty generalized. But if I think about sales, they
Mhm.
might have 20 seconds to come up with an answer to a potential question or an objection that they need to
Yeah.
handle.
Mhm.
And that's something that they are going to get in the flow of work.
Mhm.
And so that to me, when we think about sales enablement and the huge role that could and should have in a company, that's
Mhm.
going to have huge gains and opportunity for in the flow of work and
Mhm.
building capacity and solving those problems,
Mhm.
for people who are in customer facing roles.
Okay. Okay. Brilliant. This has been very insightful. Thank you so much for being gracious with your time and all these insights, Calista. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks, Ben.